Welcome, everybody. Tom LaGrave. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Getting into a little bit of your book and the work that you're doing, this is a topic specifically with adolescence that I've been really on myself because I think, like most people, it's something that we all know is a challenge and a problem with the world that we have now with technology and stuff and how to help kids, but often kind of get stuck of what's the first step to do, and that's what you've been really working on in your career. So to kick this off and your background, how did you get from being in special forces and with the SEALs, then into the work with social work, till eventually now really making a mission to helping adolescents at this time navigate getting into adulthood?
Yeah, it began, in my own adolescence. I was 14 years old when I first started using drugs and drinking, and it was all social and it was all fun. And it was the fact of the matter is, very shortly after that first drink or drug, I was an addict, alcoholic, but didn't know it. It took me 15 more years to have it all fall apart. So at 18, my father asked me to leave his house because I was getting high with a brother. And at that point, I wanted to go out into the world. It was time to, conquer. I'm 18. I'm Here we go. At that point, the only thing that was really available was to go in the military. Now, this is 1978, and the problem is Vietnam had just ended. And so nobody wanted it in the military, which was beneficial for me. So when I walked in, the recruiter just pretty much fell out of his seat and said, okay, and gave me everything I wanted, which was I wanted to be a hospital corpsman, I wanted to be in the Navy, and I wanted to see the world. Those three things. So I get to boot camp, and it turns out that in the third week, you could take a screening test to become a Navy SEAL. I had seen a picture of the cargo net at the obstacle course, and that's what I wanted to go climb that net. I did not realize everything else that came along with that net. So I passed the screening test. I went to A school for hospital corpsman, and then I ended up at Buds, class 106, 6 month period, graduating in uh, February 29th, 1980. And at that point, the career, the position, the life was magnificent. Um, I still continued to use drugs and drink because at that point, the military was not in a good shape at that point. The morale was terrible and nobody really cared. So I was able to keep my life and operate. And it was a job like no other. Problem 9 years, 6 months into the career, now we're 15 years into my addiction, and the bottom dropped off. I ended up falling asleep and not coming to work for 3 days. In the military, that's called unauthorized absence. So I was discharged for drug use from SEAL Team 1, and it was devastating. I did not have a clue as to what I was going to do with my life at that point. So the military throws me out. I go back to my father. He opens the door and he says, I see you're back and the same old problem.
Mm.
And so his deal was, look, you can come here, but you got to take care of this problem. You got an issue and this is not going away. So you take care of it and you can stay here. Otherwise, hit the road. So 4 months after my discharge, Project 90 is a 90-day recovery facility, and I ended up with 90 days of clean, no drink, no drugs for the first time in my life in 15 years.
Mm.
Problem, how do you live life without that? And that is, the easy part was, just grin and bear it and quit the drugs. But then how do you live life? I had a year's sobriety and I was going to use, and I knew it. It was not, I could not understand it. They kept saying, you got to go back into the past, your childhood, something happened, you saw something, bottom line is I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. Everything in me was, emotions were all shut off. The military was wonderful at ending that. Drugs and alcohol, that's why we use them. We don't want to feel. So how do I see what I was and understand what I went through if I can't remember it? Took a job, adolescent recovery facility, Daytop Village, 13 to 17-year-olds, court appointed juvenile delinquents with drugs and alcohol. And it was a 1 year program, and I did the overnight counseling. I did not go there to help kids. I went there to figure out how to live life. So 4 years at that job, I was given the gift of understanding myself, seeing that I was worthy and I was a good individual because these young kids were telling me that and expressing that. And not only did I find my sobriety, but I found purpose and meaning. These kids gave me my life back, and loyalty is everything with me. My loyalty is my word is my bond. And so the gift they gave me, I wanted to give it back and started working with kids. I left Daytop for the next job was a unit director at a Boys and Girls Club. I took the job at 59 kids, and 4 years later I had 440 kids, most of them teenagers. And at that point I saw that I had a skill, I had an ability, but I also had an understanding that there were gaps and things that kids were coming and telling me things and I didn't have an answer to, and because they were not part of my life, I didn't understand it, and I found that unacceptable. So I put a pause on life again, and went back to school, bachelor's, master's, licensed sports certification. All those pieces of paper look great on the wall. I didn't get it for that. I got it so that if a kid says this is happening, I got an answer for them. And so at that point, I had 4 years adolescent recovery, 4 years Boys and Girls Club, another 6 years education. Now I start doing the jobs to get the experience to better understand. And that is what now brings me here. Was I wrote a book because I saw about 5, 6 years ago what was coming. I have now seen 3 generations of youth. I've seen Gen X, I've seen the millennials, and I've seen Gen Z. And I've seen my own. I've seen what is we have in common and what is missing. And so that's the story in that book. That's my story of how I got here. And I am now in retirement and able to give back to all those that I want to specifically give this skill to that to. So I do volunteer work with kids, at Boys and Girls Club, at food distribution, at homeless shelters. And life is now wonderful again, and here to be able to share with you all the experiences that went in between the age of 14 and my age now, which is similar. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to bring it back to your early days. Like you said, you started using this was your path at 14 years old, and then at 18 things changed and you went into the military. When often you'd think that story is, oh, I'm going to go to the military to stop all this and get my life together. But this was still a part of your life during that time. What was the motivation or like the thought process of going into the military at that time?
The reason I went in was getting high with a brother, and my father said, "You're out of my house." Now, what do? You go to the street, you go to your friends and sleep on. This was remember the culture at that time, the 60s had just ended. I'm in the 70s. And at this point, it's like, what do you mean your father threw you out? What are you coming here for? Get out. It wasn't going to, there was not a place to go that was not, the street and homelessness was not like it is today. And so what is the suggestion or solution? And my thought is 3 hots and a cot.
Right.
Let's go in the military.
Yeah, just find some stability and some structure into what I can do in this life.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs: water, air, food, and shelter.
Get that down. Then from the time then you were working with the young kids and this was really a turning point, for you in that. Was there a moment during that really changed this where you saw this was a pathway that I wanted to pursue, or was it kind of a gradual and connecting with those kids who did you see yourself in a lot of these younger kids that you were talking to beforehand? What was that process like early on?
Okay, so here's the alpha and the omega of this whole thing. Um, I don't want to go in depth because I don't want to distract, but I'm a drug addict alcoholic. I'm in recovery. I do a 12-step program. And in doing that, the fourth and fifth steps is you, you made a list and made amends to everybody that you screwed pretty much. And then there are also other things that are of spiritual nature, of physical nature, of emotional nature. These things also got damaged. And so, in order to be free of it, you had to, share it with another human being. And there were secrets. And as a clinical therapist, I know this is fact. Everybody got a secret that's killing them. It's human. We hold that horrible thing, and it's what makes us less than. It's what makes us. It's what handcuffs us to being not becoming your best self. So now I'm at that adolescent recovery facility, and it's not a 12-step program. It was a philosophy. And so, like twice a year, the kids would get together and they would have a ritual, and it was done at night, and it was very solemn, and it was very spiritual. And it's where you got in touch with those dark things that were in them, and they shared it. And it was a really emotional, magical thing. Well, I was telling them that they had to do it, and I had not done it. And now I'm there for 4 years, and I'm watching this, one second time, third time, fourth time. At some point, I'm feeling like a fake and a liar, a deceiver and a manipulator. And no courage. You're watching these kids do it. You're not only watching them do it, but you're watching the magic that happens by doing it, how it, the day after, the week after, the month after, it literally changes lives. And I was the coward that couldn't do it. Went, no. Because of their strength, I found my strength. Because of their courage, I found my courage. Because they took that step, I took that step. And because they gave me that gift, that's deep, man. That's at a human level, at the very core of our being, how we bond with one another. We are social creatures. Friendship is everything. Brother and sisterhood, family is everything. And that gift they gave me was at that level, and I committed myself to it the rest of my life, being able to give them back what they had given me. That makes
Yeah.
sense?
It does. It's such an interesting thing with experience. We think about going through life, and you say you can't teach experience, you have to go through these things. And I think sometimes that can be construed as going through something yourself, like you have to go through this solitary journey. But one of the best ways to really find what you need is to give to somebody else. And it's not just because you're helping somebody, but you can also see what are you lacking. Oh, this person showed strength in being vulnerable and talking about this. And when you look back and look at yourself in the mirror, you can't lie to yourself at that point and be like, am I doing this? Like, am I being a hypocrite on this? And you can think of those things at nauseum, but when you see it right in front of you and somebody doing and experiencing the strength that you want to see in yourself, you can't get away from that.
And that was the world I found myself intersecting with. And because of it, this sits here with you.
Yeah. With the three different generations that you've seen, you said there's things in common that are really just kind of those foundational things, but then also things that are very different with it. In your experience of, working over 3 decades with people, what are the common things that you've seen have still been the main struggles with youth, and what are maybe some of the differentiations that you've seen from generations with, the technology boom and, different things of how kids experience life to this day?
Get to the technology, but shift that for a second to just the kid. The commonality is that we all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to find meaning in life, which is, what is your passion? So the commonality there with all kids throughout the generations is the same. Where it differentiates is when you go from adolescence to adulthood, there once was a sound fashion in which that occurred that is ancient. The way of the warrior, or the way of we were hunter-gatherers, and in the first part of life, you're with mom, and then you are taken by your father and the elders and shown how to be a man. And that does not occur in our society anymore. We do not have something that transitions our kids from adolescent to adulthood. What they get is a swift kick in the ass and say, good luck. And today, more than ever, now let's bring in the technology that has distracted and created anxieties that are like no other that I've experienced through each of those generations looking back, that is here today, an anxiety because this thing is wonderful, it's insightful, it's a power at our hands, but it also compares us with when I was that kid running out of my house in the neighborhood. I though my world was that neighborhood. It was my cross street friend, next door friend. And then it got a little bigger because it went to the elementary school, and a little bigger to the middle school, a little bigger to the high school. And that really, at that end, then you went to work, got married, and did it all again. So that piece right there is my world was this big. That thing, that's the whole universe. And here's the thing that we do. How did I become what I became outside of my father's house? I looked at my friends and I compared myself and I wanted to be better than them.
Right.
Okay, so now the kid has got that in his high school, but he's also online, and you can't compete with that because that's a deceptive lie. Because when you can't see me and I can say whatever I want to say, it's one thing for me to look you in the eye and tell you what I think of you. It's another thing when you're anonymous and you can be nasty.
Yeah.
And it's the kid that has got the natural talent and is the woo woo at the school, he gets torn down online because he's what everybody else wants to be. And so the world is with the technology has created an anxiety that is unlike any other anxiety in the past.
Yeah. It's interesting, Tom. The comparison aspect is a huge thing. But I think we don't look at comparison at different scales, right? As you're talking, I'm thinking about when I was a kid and used to play basketball. We'd play, the town a couple towns away. That felt like another world when you traveled there. Like you were going for like it was so far away, and it's like, oh my God, these kids are like from a different tribe. And so you can compare from that
Yes.
small sample size. But now at 12 years old, 13 years old, you're comparing to the world. And there's always going to be somebody that's bigger, stronger, faster, better looking, more intelligent. And you can say at nauseum, like, oh, don't compare, just be yourself. And like, that's fine. But that's an easy thing to say. That is an impossible thing, it seems like, in practice.
That's where we find ourselves.
With the rite of passage aspect of it, I'm curious about. My friend Hector Gutierrez talked about this with his men's group of, specifically with men now is there's no specific spot when it's like, like the Jewish culture has the bat mitzvah. There is a symbolism of you turn from a boy to a man.
Yes.
A cultural aspect, we don't have that much now. And I don't remember much of that even growing up of that. And was there a shift at all that you know of in culture when it stopped into these kind of check marks of, all right, now you're going into a next phase of life, and when that started to fade away?
So for me, and I can only speak for me, um, there was Boy Scouts, and there was when I was really little, Y Indian guides. And those were the bonding of father son. So it was there. And then I played sports in all the way through elementary, middle, and high school. And so you had that coming together, basketball or football or baseball, and there was camaraderie and all of that. And then parents came, and then you had, at the end of the season, you had a gathering together. It was a ritual. So you saw it in places, and we still have that today. But today, you know it's tough on parents. I mean, you're both working, you're both overwhelmed. Um, you're having to literally stretch yourself to just give the, just the normal stuff of, you know, how often do people sit around their table and have dinner these days? I mean, that was a bonding of the family. We sat together. There was no TV. You sat at the kitchen, you ate, you cleared it, and then you sat and talked for a little bit. That does not happen today. And if it does, it's rare. So I'm taking pieces that it's still here today, but it's not seen in the same way. And it's just, there's nothing that says, this is where you're at, this is where we want you to go, and this is how you get there.
Right.
That's not existent. As much as it was when I was a kid, you knew your father's profession, you knew the next door neighbor's profession. At some point, you got the summer job and you worked with the next door neighbor where he worked. And so you were taken and shown and guided. And a lot of that does not occur today, just for a whole slew of reasons.
That's interesting because even as we were talking, like when I thought like rite of passage is like, oh, is it one distinct moment? And as you're talking about there of just sitting around the table, that's just a consistent thing that's done on a regular basis that builds up. So it's not something like, oh, it's not a one step immersion seminar that we need. This is just a consistency of different habits that's going on that's changed.
And here's the thing is that adolescent to adulthood, that's the last one. That's the big one. That's one you're leaving home and you're standing on your own. That begins at 13. That's when your kids start pulling. That's when we pulled away. We wanted more from our friends than from our family. My father's wisdom was like, he's an old dude. And my friend, his wisdom sounded so cool because he didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
But with such conviction.
But with such conviction, and you wanted the friendship. So, yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh my God, that's
And
so funny.
instead of going
I
to the
remember
old
like
man,
you,
you'd say, what the hell are you thinking? No, no, come here. We don't do that. 13, it begins the pulling away.
yeah.
And then we hit 18 and we're expected to what? Live in this world? I have difficulties living in it. Imagine a kid that has to go there for the first time with no experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What is it's funny or I always you remember around that time like anybody who speaks with any conviction about anything you gravitate to because you're so clueless about what this world is about that if you think that anybody has something figured out you're like I'm going to lean on their coattails a little bit cuz they at least seem like they're certain about it. It could be complete
So true.
bullshit. But it's all like and that's how grifters, often, make livings and stuff like that. It's
Yes, they do.
because conviction and absolution, has some power behind it. But as you mentioned that, Tom, like with, even in your book, you dedicate it to that process of knowing yourself and finding purpose. And I think it's one of those things, it's a powerful thing to experience. But even as an adult, being an adult and working with clients who are adults, that's even challenging for us in this time of knowing that this is an ever evolving process. So with kids in that stage of adolescence, that 13 years old into that next few years, what are the things talking about purpose or, finding the things that you value and stuff? What is the process that seems to work really well of helping them on that journey? Because it's such a pivotal spot with, development of just your thoughts and even who you are. What are the things that you found work very well of helping, kids at that age find their purpose at that moment?
So it's not going to be what you think is the answer. The fact of the matter is, it begins and it ends with love. Now, my first professional job after graduation was Child Protective Services. I grew up in a crazy, insane, alcoholic family that loved each other. There are kids that grew up abandoned, abused, and that piece right there, the love, if your child, parents come to me and say, I'm terrible, I can't, I'm screwing my kid up, and I say, look, let me ask you this one simple question: does your child know that you love them? And parents are like, what the hell are you talking? Yeah, of course they know I love. You got it. Drop the kid on his head, he's going to be all right. So instead of because each kid is individual, and you got three kids, you can't, your eldest, you can't raise him like you're going to raise the middle kid. Every child has strengths and weaknesses that will make that answer the particular for them. But the global is love. And this is where I also found it to be really an eye opener. In recovery, you have to come to terms with love. And if you, as a child, did not have that experience, wow, that's a tough one. Because how do you give yourself love that you didn't experience? That word, describe it. Give me 10 people, it's one word, it's 4 letters, and everybody's going to describe it differently. But everybody wants it, needs it, and is driven for it. And it's that you offer your child so that they know that you're loved. So that means that their self-worth, their self-esteem, their self-appreciation, their self-understanding. Because at that age, the self is this embryo that just is, everything that I said to my 13-year-old self was cruel and unusual punishment. That's what kids do. That's what we all do. So when you have in your house parents that truly love you, that's the counter. That's like, you can say you're ugly and your hair's ugly, but the fact is I still love you.
Right.
And
There's
that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those, it is one of those words. It's like strength, right? Like everybody's going to have a little definition. It's like the wind, right? You can't see it, but you feel it. It's like you know where that's at. And I think that's, it's so true, and it gets so trite that almost it falls. Yeah, of course I love, my kid, or I love my
Cliches.
spouse, or exactly. It's like, but the actual presence of practicing that on a regular basis, like that is the main thing to get into.
And that's the gift. Because if in sobriety, to recover, you got to find the love. You have to love yourself. That's where it all begins. And so if you can give your child anything, the greatest gift you can give them is love. It takes you everywhere in this world, and you'll figure it out. Without love, then you're fighting the world, and in fighting, you're going to eventually lose.
With your experience with addiction, not just personally, but then working with kids and people in it, have you seen, is there a specific pattern that you see more people go down? I know there's a genetic component that comes in too, but addiction comes in all different forms. It comes in drugs or substance, it comes in food, pornography. I mean, there's a million different ones that come in. Gamble, yeah, was there patterns that you saw more common than other ones that would make addiction maybe at a higher degree versus others?
If there's not connectivity, what we do at 13 again is isolate. And in that isolation, that's where it really manifests. So if you're being pulled into with your family constantly, come out of your room, all that there is, you know, diminishing the potential of what happens with addiction. The part is there are kids that are born unaddicted. There, you know what? My best friend, the story was, we were smoking a joint, and he pulled out the joint, he lit it, he took a hit, gave it to me, I hit it, he took it back and he put it in the ashtray, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I smoked that until it's burning my fingers. He just did it and really doesn't have to do it. That you're born with. That's genetics. I don't, people ask me, how could you not stop drinking? I mean, how can you drink and drink? And I'm asking, how can you possibly stop?
Stop. Yeah.
So the addiction piece is, this is where I will offer it as a token of must be aware. When it comes to your kids, you have to differentiate between, is it addiction or is it experimentation? So when it was my childhood, the experimentation wasn't going to kill you. Today, kids can go online and have the drug delivered to their front door, like DoorDash. And here's the thing is, they listen to all their friends, and that Xanax, and their friends ain't going to give it up because, it's a rare commodity. And so, but he wants, or she wants to try it. So you go online, you get it ordered, you get your Xanax, you go up to your room, you shut your door, you turn your music on, you put your earphones on, you create your world, and you take your Xanax, and it's a straight shot of, what is the drug right now that's killing
Fentanyl.
everybody?
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
Yeah.
You thought it was Xanax, and you took the fentanyl. And this is the worst part. Parents come home that night and, hey, Susie, where you at? And they go up and they open the door, and there's Susie. How's that for the rest of your life? Because experimentation, or is it addiction? You have to watch very closely there. And you don't want to use with your kids so that they can figure that out, but you want to educate them on, what's the high, what's the low. Let them know, because the kids at school are not giving you the right information. As a matter of fact, they're giving you the information to make it a curiosity. I want to see what this is. So you get the Xanax, and it's Xanax. That's a different story. But the fentanyl right now is in everything, and it is
Yeah.
something that is just makes all the difference, especially at the world of adolescence, where everything is new and wonderful, and let's live, and it's dangerous out here.
Yeah, it is a very different. I didn't know much about it until about 6 months ago when I started hearing and really researching it, just more for my own knowledge base to just understand it. Because, growing up, we had our times of more experimentation on it, and
Yes,
you forget, like, at that age, like, you're gonna be curious. You're gonna find some stuff out. Like, as a parent, like anybody, like, you can't prevent, like, in rap and bubble wrap, and you're going to go out into the world and you're gonna experiment. Best thing you can do is give as much information as possible, and
exactly.
yeah, no, you can, I'm going to be here if something happens and stuff like that. Like, as you said, like, lead with love. Like, that is the thing. Like, whatever happens, I'm here. Like, you don't have to be worried about that. But I want to shift into asking you about this term masculinity, specifically with young men, because this is a term it's widely, talked about now, and I feel like the definition has changed quite a bit over the last decades. And I mean, obviously from the experience that you had in the Navy and with the SEALs, which is deemed a very masculine, spot, there's probably some misunderstandings and misconstrued about what's going on there. But what is the definition that you see now about masculinity and how it's changed over the years?
They call it toxic masculinity, and it's got a following online, and it's like bullshit. Here's the thing: is I got to go back to addiction. If you're going to get sober, and if you got 3, 5 years, 7, 9 years of sobriety, you got in touch with your emotions, baby, because you had to. You cannot. When I walked into sobriety, I knew happy and rage. That's it. Two. I was happy or I was raging. There's no sad or mad. No, I was like the spectrum was whack, punch the lights out. And so that piece right there is when you did your fourth and fifth step and you made amends. Oh man, the emotions are, you got to stand in front of somebody and say, all the things that you did. Think about that you've harmed people and you got to go back. So every male in sobriety that has sobriety is not toxic. And look, I'll first one to tell you, I can't stand emotions. I hate the things. Cold and calculating works for me, but it doesn't work to live in this world. And especially if you got daughters, come on, guys. You want to go toxic with them? Remember, your daughter is looking at you to find her mate. That's who she's going to be drawn to. So if you're a wonderful bread-winning SOB, smack the old lady and put her in her place, what do you think you're doing with your daughter? So when we're together, guys, in the bar, be a dick all you want. It works. But when you walk outside of that bar in the world, and especially if you walk into your house and you got boys or girls, your children, understand that kids do not listen to a word we say. They watch us. They become us by watching us, not by what we tell them they should be. So if you want to go toxic masculine, okay, but you're going to perpetuate pain long beyond past when you're done and gone. So I don't know, did that answer the question?
Yeah, it is. I think it's just a fascinating topic of it because, it's easy to put them into different categories. This is masculine, this is feminine, and so on. There's a degree of, as you said, like, yeah, there's happy and rage. That's two opposite ends of the spectrum. There's a big wave inside of this that can ebb and flow in different ways. And I think as guys, which is more of like, we want to have a logic behind it of like, we all want to always know why we, feel the way that we feel in different ways.
There's another piece that we haven't touched on that we could go to that's called spirituality. So in that domain, those rules in spirituality are, you can't change them. They are what they are. So if you want to be enlightened, if you want to know peace and calm and balance, as a clinical therapist, I'm forever pushing meditation, breath work, because the fact of the matter is we are capable of transcending ourselves. And that becomes first and foremost, who am I? You have to get there. Now, as a clinical therapist, I know that there are individuals that cannot have this conversation. They're not built for it. I'm not talking to you guys right now. I'm talking to those who have spirituality, that have meaning, that have aspirations for more. And the way I see it right now is meditation helps you balance to remove the negative influences, because there's conscious and subconscious, unconscious, conscious. And if you are consciously balanced, but subconsciously unbalanced, you're unbalanced. So the fact of the matter is to get to that place where you know that meditation can bring to remove it. What I am within at the core of my conscious unconscious is what I put out in the world. And the world is a wonderful giver. If I'm an dick, it's going to give me that. If I am a human being of compassion and understanding, the world will give me that. Okay, then why I do all those things and this happened? Well, you're also, the world is kind and giving you lessons to learn when you can become better. And something that's upsetting you is what's telling you you need to improve. How do you look at it? All of it comes down to, I don't want the negative emotions, the toxic emotions that when I exude them out into the world, that's what I get back. And in this day and age, it's a challenge to maintain stability, balance, and compassion in this world.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been times in our past where even this world was preferable to how horrible it can actually get.
Yeah. Do you think that managing of balance, the key to that is knowing that things are never going to fully be in balance? I often think of balance as like, we think that we're going to get to this constant state where this is at this and this is at this, where I always think of it like juggling, right? It's like, if we think of balance, it's like all the balls go up in the air and they're all at the same spot, but they're all going to fall at some point as well. where it's more of like sometimes one ball is up in the air and the other one you got to catch, and you got to kind of keep the rhythm and the flow. And that's how I've, connected Tom more with like the aspect of spiritual strength. Like, what does that mean? Is that God? Is that the divine? Is that more of faith in yourself? Like, what does that actually mean? And I think from that, the best frame that I've got from that is just surrender and letting go to, like, often a lot of like what things are gonna, you're only in control of what you can control. And I feel like that is a very masculine and strong state to be in, where you're not reacting to something. It's more of, all right, these things are flowing, these things are happening. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for it. I don't have to react in a deeply emotional way. I can let it process a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because here's the thing is you're talking about the emotion. It's he or she that won't talk about, and because if you're not talking about it, how are you feeling it? It's its own conversation, and it's what is missing. There's rage going on today. There's no middle ground. There's no compromise. It's like you're one of them or you're one of them. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know any human being that's one or the other. We are complex. And so at this stage right now, yours was, I'm never going to hit nirvana. I'm not a monk in the Himalayas, but progress works for me because I'm never going to get perfection.
I love it. There's that beautiful parable of the man who I think went to the Buddha and was asking about the meaning of life and kept going back, and the Buddha said, "I'll tell you what the meaning of life is. Go do this journey and leave here, go to this mountain and come back. All right, what's the meaning of life?" And he kept coming back and back till eventually the guy left for, years, and then he ran into him later in life. He's like, "Oh, did you find the meaning of life?" And the guy responded, "Does it matter?" And it was kind of like, it was just this beautiful kind of just like, yeah, like it was just a beautiful just framework of how that came about.
And I followed your reason perfectly and went, uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, in in the most successful clients and people that you saw who really made breakthroughs and really found their way from, being in the dark and in rock bottom and got themselves out of that, what internal shifts or like specific things did you see in them that allowed them to break through? Was it like looking in the past and understanding it? Was it more of a disciplined mindset? Was it, what were like the specific things, if there was a commonality amongst the ones that not only saw the breakthrough but continued on and built their system of success?
Yeah, it goes back to your analogy. It's the people that finally give up because they're looking for an answer that's you're never going to find. It comes down to, those that change are just like they've let their psyche, their soul go, and then change can happen. Remember, the ego, I am a man. I'm a Navy SEAL, mother. Well, so, okay. So what is, does that feed your kids and does that put a roof over the head? And well, it did, but it came with a price. And there are, what are we looking at here? The fact of the matter is that at this point, I completely lost my trend of thought. How's that?
It happens. I get it.
You know why? Because I had more than one thought going on there that I wanted to say, and I forgot them both.
Yeah.
So
The
bring me back to
the
wherever we're gonna go.
yeah, the dissolving of the ego.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's the powerful one. That's the piece there that internally it keeps us in darkness because it tells us there's light and we believe it. That's the ego. When the ego is completely repressed, or you know what, it doesn't exist anymore because you have come to understand that it's not giving you the facts. And now you're open to the world giving you what your ego is no longer giving you. And that's when the change comes. You're open for the change. So when people come to therapy, you know what? I never know who's going to get it or not. it tends to be those who have come because what they got is not working. And it's not like we're going to find it, but they're open to seeing. And here's the thing with therapy, especially with men, I have never given somebody their answer. I'm not that smart. What I'm smart at is finding the answer that's in you. You have your answer in you. And if you can find it without the therapist, and there are those that do, you can't. If you're going to be self-analyzing, self-aware, you can, and being honest with yourself, you're going to see your foibles, what what isn't right. In therapy, I just find that in you, and once you see it, you're like, oh yeah. And then I get the hell out of the way because you'll do the rest of the work. And that's how that works. Those that come that are fighting it, I, I I'm really good at this stage because I don't have to heal you. Early on, I wanted to be good. I want to make a difference.
Right.
No, 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 no. I'm just there to facilitate that. If you are willing to work, I'll bring you my experience
Right.
and share it with you, and that you'll do with it what you want. And therapy isn't because you're weak. Therapy is because you got the internal fortitude to say, I don't have the answer, and I'm going to have somebody help me find it. It's not because you're weak. Come on.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many parallels in everything that we do. Like being in the fitness world and coaching and personal training, I saw that the ones that succeeded for the long term were the ones that didn't hold to an expectation of this is what I'm supposed to do. They just came in every day and however it flowed, they just did it. Okay, it was a great session. Awesome. I'm going to come back to the next day. It was a shitty session. Awesome. I'll come back to the next day, try and be a little bit better. But you just built, and I think that's with health, that's with relationships. If you're going to go into a marriage, you got to do it the same way. Into business, it's the same way. Like you can't just expect everything because then you're just driving yourself nuts. You just go in every day and you work on it and let it go. So it's in all these different facets of the things that we value most in our lives. It's still from a foundational level, all comes back to letting go of the ego. It's that person versus persona aspect of it. If you hold on to the persona of who you think you're supposed to be, then you can't see the person, which is all this different, things, this tangled web of everything that we are.
Therapist?
No, just coach for 17 years.
And you know what? I can feel it. I sense it because you're giving me you're offering the information. You're not telling me.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Tom LaGrave, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate your work and everything that you're doing. If people want to check out more of what you're doing, I know the book is out now. What's the best place that they can go and check it out?
I just created a new website. So my name is Thomas LaGrave. Tom. I go by Tom, but if you want to get to the website, put thomaslagrave.com and it will give you everything that I've been doing in the last 5 years, from the book to the closing of Honor Bound Academy to my new gig doing speaking engagements and all my thoughts. I have this section called Tom's Tips for Parents with Kids. I got like 150 questions that parents sent me that I answered. So they're all on there too.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, we'll put those all in the show notes. Thomas, thank you so much again. Listeners, thank you guys so
Michael, you've
much.
been great. I
Appreciate it.
feel the same way. Thank you for the opportunity you've given me.
100%. Bye, everybody.